If freedom is to survive and prosper, it will require the sacrifice, the effort and the thoughtful attention of every citizen. The stories of past courage can teach, they can offer hope, they can provide inspiration. But they cannot supply courage itself. For this, each man must look into his own soul. For in a democracy, every citizen, regardless of his interest in politics, hold office, every one of us is in a position of responsibility, and, in the final analysis, the kind of government we get depends upon how we fulfill those responsibilities. We, the people, are the boss, and we will get the kind of political leadership, be it good or bad, that we demand and deserve. A man does what he must, in spite of personal consequences, in spite of obstacles and dangers and pressures, and that is the basis of all human morality. Let us not emphasize all on which we differ but all we have in common. Let us consider not what we fear separately but what we share together. Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe to assure the survival and the success of liberty. United there is little we cannot do in a host of cooperative ventures. Divided there is little we can do, for we dare not meet a powerful challenge at odds and split asunder. If a free society cannot help the many who are poor, it cannot save the few who are rich. I think the American people expect more from us than cries of indignation and attack. The times are too grave, the challenge too urgent, and the stakes too high, to permit the customary passions of political debate. We are not here to curse the darkness, but to light the candle that can guide us through that darkness to a safe and sane future. So let us begin anew, remembering on both sides that civility is not a sign of weakness, and sincerity is always subject to proof. Let us never negotiate out of fear. But let us never fear to negotiate. That is the question of the new frontier. That is the choice our nation must make, a choice that lies not merely between two men or two parties, but between the public interest and private comfort, between national greatness and national decline, between the fresh air of progress and the stale, dank atmosphere of normalcy, between determined dedication and creeping mediocrity. All mankind waits upon our decision. A whole world looks to see what we will do. We cannot fail their trust, we cannot fail to try. Let both sides seek to invoke the wonders of science instead of its terrors. Together let us explore the stars, conquer the deserts, eradicate disease, tap the ocean depths and encourage the arts and commerce. My fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. My fellow Americans, let us take that first step. Let us step back from the shadow of war and seek out the way of peace. And if that journey is 1,000 miles, or even more, let history record that we, in this land, at this time, took the first step. I have said that control of arms is a mission that we undertake particularly for our children and our grandchildren, and that they have no lobby in Washington. If more politicians knew poetry, and more poets knew politics, I am convinced the world would be a little better place in which to live. Change is the law of life. And those who look only to the past or the present are certain to miss the future. Children are the world's most valuable resource and its best hope for the future. For one true measure of a nation is its success in fulfilling the promise of a better life for each of its members. Let this be the measure of our nation. I am certain that after the dust of centuries has passed over our cities, we, too, will be remembered not for victories or defeats in battle or in politics, but for our contribution to the human spirit. I have pledged myself and my colleagues in the Cabinet to a continuous encouragement of initiative, responsibility and energy in serving the public interest. Let every public servant know, whether his post is high or low, that a man's rank and reputation in this administration will be determined by the size of the job he does, and not by the size of his staff, his office or his budget. The success of this government, and thus the success of our nation, depends in the last analysis upon the quality of our career services. War will exist until that distant day when the conscientious objector enjoys the same reputation and prestige that the warrior does today. In the Chinese language, the word crisis is composed of two characters, one representing danger and the other, opportunity. Rising tide lifts all boats. To further the appreciation of culture among all the people, to increase respect for the creative individual, to widen participation by all the processes and fulfillments of art, this is one of the fascinating challenges of these days. We can say with some assurance that, although children may be the victims of fate, they will not be the victims of our neglect. I look forward to an America which will not be afraid of grace and beauty. An America which will reward achievement in the arts as we reward achievement in business or statecraft. The federal budget can and should be made an instrument of prosperity and stability, not a deterrent to recovery. We must never forget that art is not a form of propaganda, it is a form of truth. The time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining, by filling 3 basic gaps in our anti-recession protection. It may be different elsewhere. But democratic society, in it, the highest duty of the writer, the composer, the artist is to remain true to himself and to let the chips fall where they may. It is increasingly clear that no matter what party is in power, so long as our national security needs keep rising, an economy hampered by restrictive tax rates will never produce enough jobs or enough profits. Now let me make it clear that I believe there can only be one defense policy for the United States, and that is summed up in the word first. I do not mean first, but. I do not mean first, when. I do not mean first, if. I mean first, period. This is a great country and requires a good deal of all of us, so I can imagine nothing more important than for all of you to continue to work in public affairs and be interested in them, not only to bring up a family, but also give part of your time to your community, your state, and your country. This nation has tossed its cap over the wall of space, and we have no choice but to follow it. What we seek to advance, what we seek to develop in all of our colleges and universities, are educated men and women who can bear the burdens of responsible citizenship, who can make judgments about life as it is, and as it must be, and encourage the people to make those decisions which can bring not only prosperity and security, but happiness to the people of the United States and those who depend upon it. I ask particularly that those of you who are now in school will prepare yourselves to bear the burden of leadership over the next 40 years here in the United States, and make sure that the United States, which I believe almost alone has maintained watch and ward for freedom, that the United States meet its responsibility. That is a wonderful challenge for us as a people. Forgive your enemies, but never forget their names. The rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. We must find time to stop and thank the people who make a difference in our lives. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. Conformity is the jailer of freedom and the enemy of growth. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. The great enemy of truth is very often not the lie, deliberate, contrived and dishonest, but the myth, persistent, persuasive and unrealistic. Too often we hold fast to the clichés of our forebears. We subject all facts to a prefabricated set of interpretations. We enjoy the comfort of opinion without the discomfort of thought. Victory has 100 fathers and defeat is an orphan. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. If a free society cannot help the many who are poor, it cannot save the few who are rich. Leadership and learning are indispensable to each other. Public libraries should be open to all, except the censor. One person can make a difference, and everyone should try. We must know all the facts and hear all the alternatives and listen to all the criticisms. Let us welcome controversial books and controversial authors. For the Bill of Rights is the guardian of our security as well as our liberty. Do not pray for easy lives. Pray to be stronger men. Liberty without learning is always in peril, and learning without liberty is always in vain. Mankind must put an end to war, or war will put an end to mankind. I believe in an America that is officially neither Catholic, Protestant nor Jewish, where no public official either requests or accepts instructions on public policy from the Pope, the National Council of Churches or any other ecclesiastical source, where no religious body seeks to impose its will directly or indirectly upon the general populace or the public acts of its officials, and where religious liberty is so indivisible that an act against one church is treated as an act against all. We cannot negotiate with people who say what's mine is mine and what's yours is negotiable. Peace is a daily, a weekly, a monthly process, gradually changing opinions, slowly eroding old barriers, quietly building new structures. And however undramatic the pursuit of peace, that pursuit must go on. If not us, who? If not now, when? A man does what he must, in spite of personal consequences, in spite of obstacles and dangers and pressures, and that is the basis of all human morality. I'm an idealist without illusions. Those who dare to fail miserably can achieve greatly. Art is the great democrat, calling forth creative genius from every sector of society, disregarding race or religion or wealth or color. The ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of all. A child miseducated is a child lost. Those who foolishly sought power by riding the back of the tiger ended up inside. So, let us not be blind to our differences, but let us also direct attention to our common interests and to the means by which those differences can be resolved. When power leads man toward arrogance, poetry reminds him of his limitations. When power narrows the area of man's concern, poetry reminds him of the richness and diversity of existence. When power corrupts, poetry cleanses. The supreme reality of our time is the vulnerability of our planet. Not every child has an equal talent or an equal ability or equal motivation, but they should have the equal right to develop their talent and their ability and their motivation, to make something of themselves. I look forward to a future in which our country will match its military strength with our moral restraint, its wealth with our wisdom, its power with our purpose.